All right, my name's Sam Thompson. I'm the host of Witchpolice Radio, a local music podcast, and I'm in this exotic location outside of my comfort zone to do an interview with a local singer-songwriter, pop star in the making, Carlo Capobianco. So yeah, we're in this interesting spot to talk about your new record. So first of all, congratulations on the record.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is the Mariaggi Suite. And my mom used to own a restaurant downstairs where the Legion is now, so we kind of got a connection here, and it's nice. I thought it was a nice spot to film in.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that maybe I do want to talk about the record, but I think that the kind of opulence isn't the word, but the vibe of this place, it's there's a lot going on, and I mean, I think that it fits in well with what you're doing as an artist in the way that you have kind of a visual portrayal of yourself. I mean, even just looking at the way you're dressed, you have a lot of rings, you got a lot of jewelry. It's a very big, sort of loud persona that you have as an artist. Is that sort of why this seemed like a good spot to talk here?
Yeah, I wanted to have everything that I do to be grand, especially even if I'm doing an interview, I don't want to be in front of like a white wall. I want there to be some sort of character to what I'm doing. So I feel like this was the perfect place because they have so many different themes here. And I thought this was a good... It's kind of tacky, but it's also kind of like just an 80s vibe. Not really 80s, but it's...
well, maybe 80s in Morocco.
80s in Morocco. 80s in Morocco. Yeah. 80s in Morocco.
Well, how does that idea of wanting to have character behind what you do, how does that fit into you as an artist? I mean, you obviously are bringing that into your look, into your locations for something like this. How do you kind of fit that personality into your songwriting?
I feel like it's... Ever since I started doing music, it's always been a goal of mine to create a world that is not real. It's like you said, it's opulence, it's loudness, it's drama, and it's I do that because I feel like I want to create something that, because you always see these these big labels with these big personalities and these big music videos and these huge funds that these artists get, and I want to create that, but with what we have here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And I feel like I love Begonia, and she's such an incredible artist, and she has such a great vision for what she does, and I kind of took inspiration from that, and I wanted to create my own little world of Carlo Capobianco, and so getting the set, getting the clothes, getting the makeup, the hair, all that kind of stuff, I feel like just it adds on to just the world that I'm creating, that I'm terraforming.
Yeah. I like that idea. And I think that you're right. A lot of, like, as you said, you're probably not the first. Begonia is a great example of someone who is doing something similar as far as having a visual element and having, that kind of vibe. But there's so many artists here in Manitoba, here in Winnipeg, and that element is often something that people kind of skip out on, right? They focused on the music solely, and, there'll be four guys in jeans and a t-shirt playing guitars on stage, and then that's sort of the extent of it. That's the way it's presented. But you obviously have right down to the album cover on your new record. Every bit of that is very meticulously chosen and determined ahead of time.
Yeah, I kind of get mad when I go to a show, and it's like the debut release show, and it's like a guy wearing a sweater and like a graphic tee, and well, that's a nice sweater. That's like a nice. You would wear that to a dinner party, but I'm talking like a guy wearing an Adidas sweater to like a show.
Yeah,
and it's like like slick back your hair, put on a tie, put on a shirt, or something. Like it's a show. Like you want to show people that this is your your music, and even if you love the music so much that you don't care about the image, I still feel image is a little important because you want to exemplify what you stand for, and what I'm doing is pop, and pop is kind of grand, and it's kind of a big thing. But like, even if you're doing, a punk rock show at the Handsome Daughter or something, you want to show them something that's like never before seen, or just like wear matching outfits, or do something that's interesting.
Well, and I think that the pop music in general, it often, for people who aren't into pop music, people who are maybe they listen to punk rock, maybe they listen to hip hop, whatever it is, I think pop has almost a stigma to it, where it's seen as this thing that is more image than substance, right? And I think that this album is maybe a good example of something where that's not the case, because you're touching on a lot of personal issues, a lot of kind of autobiographical themes on this record, and that's definitely far from just kind of throwaway, mindless, image-only pop music, right?
Mm-hmm. There is a stigma that pop music is kind of manufactured, and it's this labels searching for young girls that are pop teen, like bimbos, and they get hired and they do a single and then they're thrown out if it doesn't get to top 40 or whatever. But I feel like pop is a lot more than just top 40. It's pop music is pop culture.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of been lost in a way. I think 80s and 90s pop music was really like the pinnacle of pop culture and pop music blending together. And I feel like I want, obviously, Charlie XCX and Lil Nas X and all these incredible new pop artists are doing something fresh and something new. And I kind of wanted to bring that to Winnipeg, because I feel like there's pop artists and there's not a lot of pop artists here, especially pop artists that are really, out there. I feel like it's kind of just hidden, behind like SoundCloud releases or, whatever. I think the rock scene here is the most prominent scene in Winnipeg, and I feel like pop is slowly, getting some more coverage, because I feel like people are still afraid of pop because people feel like pop is manufactured, or it's whatever, he's singing with a backing track, but it's so much more than that. Like you can have so much more in pop music than is realized. It's just, just because it's catchy doesn't mean it's not meaningful.
Right. Well, and I think that Winnipeg is maybe a good example of a city where maybe the reason why pop hasn't happened as much here as maybe it has in other cities is because I think a lot of Winnipeg artists and people in the Winnipeg community, they like the sort of blue-collar vibe the city has. They like the griminess. A lot of the bands that have made it out of Winnipeg have had some element of kind of roughness around them, right? And pop is very clean and very... it doesn't have that. It can have that, but as a genre, it kind of, the edges are smoothed out because you want to make something catchy. You want to make something that has this wide appeal, and I think that Winnipeg kind of goes towards the rougher side of things a lot of the time. Yeah. So that's maybe why there hasn't been so much of a pop scene.
Yeah, I feel like that is the stance that a lot of people have, is that it's not rough enough, or if it's not real enough.
That's right, yeah. That authenticity, right? That's what people want here, I think, in the music community. And that can obviously be had with pop music, but I think there's maybe just not that many examples to go from.
Yeah, that's exactly the consensus. That is, it's like it's manufactured. So when you go on stage with just a backing track, it's kind of like karaoke. It's like, and that's why I have a band, because I want people to realize like it's not just pop music. It's like real music that's being played.
Yeah.
And I feel like people are really, really like it and support it, and the community has been like super open to me, and they've been so welcoming, and I'm very glad that they've been there for me. And Winnipeg is so small, so I mean, like anybody that is a musician knows somebody else that you know, and you know somebody that they know, and so it's very easy to connect with people and to make something happen. So it's I'm I'm glad that people are being receptive to it, but I feel like sometimes it's a little hard to get people into it because they still think it's like, oh, like, okay, like this is a pop song, what are we going to do with that? People want realness, but I think people don't realize like any type of music can be real as long as it's coming from a place of true passion and love.
Yeah, you can be authentic. You don't have to be playing punk rock to be authentic. You don't have to be playing country to be authentic, which is another genre that's huge in Winnipeg, right? Mm-hmm. Country and bluegrass and folk.
Right.
But I mean, what is this record about? Because I mean, like I said a few minutes ago, you do touch on a lot of personal topics on this album, and you're dealing with, to use that realness term again, you're dealing with real subject matter on a glossier genre of music.
Well, I describe the album as kind of a conversation between me and God, but not in the sense of it's an album that is, a ode to God or religion. It's more of a metamorphosis of, finding myself through pain, jealousy, obsession. Yeah, so I grew up in a Catholic household and I wasn't allowed to do a lot of things. Like I couldn't play with dolls. I couldn't, listen to feminine music, feminine pop music. I remember once I was like with my parents in a Walmart and I wanted the Pussycat Dolls record. And they saw the cover and they're like, you're not going to listen to that. You're blah, 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 blah. And so it was this huge ordeal. Like I couldn't listen to anything that was like perceived as feminine or like not, because I'm Italian. I live in an Italian Catholic household. So it's like a whole deal that like, if you do this, if you do that, it's like it's against our community. People are going to see, people are going to be like, oh, he's not, so it's about getting through that and it's about this person that I was really into and it wasn't for them, but I felt like we had something and I just ended up being, so obsessed and, into this person. And so that's what the concept of the album began as when I started writing it, but I feel like it turned into an ode to freedom and just getting through the muddy parts of love and freedom and being yourself.
Yeah. Do you feel once this comes out and once people hear these songs and hear kind of what you went through, do you have any nerves or concerns about people who were there in previous parts of your life and family members, for example, hearing this? And I'm sure they know you are you at this point in time, but I mean, does this reveal any kind of bring up any old issues that maybe people haven't dealt with, whether it's you or someone else that you're putting out and kind of exercising musically?
There might be one person, but I don't care. I didn't mention any names. I didn't mention any specific locations or, those warnings before movies. It's like all these characters are not real and anything is by coincidence.
It's fictional. Yeah.
It's just, it's as much as it's about specific people or specific memories, it's not. The songs are constructed in a way that they're non-binary, I guess you could say. Like they can. I was careful not to mention, she, he.
Right.
I was like you, they, us. It's more of a record that anybody could listen to it and they could say, I'm sleeping with the enemy. I know you're not good for me. It's not, I know she's not good for me. I know he's not good for me. It's, I know you're not good for me. So it's like, Yeah.
Well, that's how pop music works. I think that's
Mhm.
when it does work. I think it's because everyone can see themselves in the situation, right?
Mhm.
I mean, you can put yourself in the shoes of the singer and
Mhm.
feel the same emotions. Especially,
Yeah.
I mean, not to limit pop music to teenagers, of course, but that's historically been a big audience, and a lot of people, especially with relationship type issues, they're feeling that hard at
Yeah.
that age, right? And so they can fit themselves within the confines of that song maybe better than
Sure.
anyone.
For sure, yeah. I feel like that's true. But this is more, I feel like anybody can relate to this. This is more like, a 60-year-old grandma could like be like, oh yeah, this reminds me of the 80s. Or, a teenager could be like, oh, this is a cool sound. Or I feel like it's just whatever. I don't really know my demographic. I don't think I have a demographic right now, but it's whatever it is what it is. Yeah.
It was part of putting these songs together. Was it cathartic to kind of talk about all this stuff and then sing about it? Did that help you kind of deal with anything that you'd been dealing with?
Yeah, I feel like it's when I started the record, I was in a really confused state because I had shopped the demos to a few producers in town, and no one really understood the vision that I had. And it felt like they were kind of just making whatever, I was on the clock, and they just kind of like do whatever sounds that they did, and they didn't really listen to the sounds that I wanted. And so it felt like I was kind of paying them for nothing. And so I'd end up with like a $300 bill by the end of the night for a song that I didn't want, and it just didn't sound like real to me. It didn't sound like what I wanted. And so when I discovered House of Wonders, who is headed by Adam Furr, I really connected with him, and he really connected with me, and we really found a good sound and a good way of making the music. And so by the end of the record, I felt like I really, did what I had to do, and it felt good to, have my own vision, appear in front of me that wasn't, something else that someone gave to me and said, this is going to be your record. Like,
Yeah.
I decided that this was going to be my record, and this is the sounds that I wanted, and the imagery that I created, and the vibe. I hate that word, but it's
descriptive though, right? I
a
mean,
useful word.
Yeah. What is sort of? I mean, you said a few minutes ago, wanting to sort of take this in your own direction and the way you wanted to go with it. What is the goal with this? I mean, what are you hoping will happen with this record? I mean, obviously you want people to hear it. That goes without saying. But what is your sort of ideal situation once this is released, with as far as the response and the way it kind of opens new doors for you?
I want to be the biggest star in the world. That's what I want to be.
That's pretty.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Well, okay, maybe a question off that then is, I mean, that's a great goal to have for sure. Yeah. How do you do that? I mean, do you think your whole control of your own vision and your own sound and your own songs, is that sort of helping towards that goal because you have everything sort of under your own umbrella, where you can sort of dictate what goes where and how things happen?
Yeah, I feel like it's a matter of doing things with class and doing things with substance, because I feel like a lot of people go into a studio and they say, I want a pop song, and it sounds like every other pop song that's been created. It's the same samples, it's the same arpeggios, it's the same chord structure. And so I want to create music that is reminiscent of the 80s and the 90s, but not in a way that is like, oh, you made an 80s song.
You don't want to be a nostalgia act, right?
I'm not a nostalgia act. I'm not like an 80s wave kind of guy. Like it's more of just like if the 80s were now and we had the technology to make if we had the technology in the 80s and the 80s were now, I don't know if that makes sense, but if you made music in the 80s with the technology that we have now, it would sound like this. You know, it's modern, but it has a touch of, you know, modern drums. It has modern engineering and production, but it still has that kind of, it sounds old. It sounds, because you hear a lot of people, you know, make 80s music that sounds like it's from the 80s. You know, it sounds, you know, they use the sample packs from the 80s, the synths from the 80s, and it sounds like an 80s song. But I wanted to create something that kind of blended modern and 80s at the same time, kind of similar to like The Weeknd or Dua Lipa.
Right.
Just somewhere in the middle, you know?
And that seems like a natural fit for you too, because you're not in the 80s right now, so you are being influenced by everything that's happening now,
Right.
and you have access to all of this technology and these recording equipment and everything like that, but you're obviously influenced by the 80s stuff, so yeah, this is just, I guess, a natural progression from that.
Yeah,
maybe skipping over a few decades and jumping right to now, but yeah.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, I love the 80s. It's the Culture Club and the Eurythmics and Tears for Fears. They were just all making Madonna, Prince. They were all just being crazy and doing whatever they had to do to make music that was, you know, shining and pop-tastic.
Right on.
Yeah. You can buy my record on Bandcamp because that's the best way to support artists online. It's only $10. So, I mean, that's a pretty good deal for 8 songs. And I have a release show on April 20th at the Goodwill, so come down to that. I don't know if this is going to be edited by then, but like, if it is, come to the show. Instagram, Facebook, wherever I am, Carlo Capobianco. You can get my record there. I'm on all streaming platforms as well. So thanks, Distro Kid. Everything is everywhere. So YouTube too. So yeah.
All right.
That's it. Cool.
And